And I am done. So, I just finished up listening to The Burning White. This is the 5th book in the Lightbringer series, the final book. This is by Brent Weeks, and I wanted to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing the book, which was just now. So, I really like this book. Give it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it's honestly probably going to be my most shockingly good book that I've read this month. In fact, the most shockingly good book that I've read in several months. And the reason for this is my expectations going into this book were like unprecedentedly bad. And if you've watched my channel before, you would know that I really like to go into books knowing virtually nothing about them. I go based on recommendations from friends. And when they tell me to like a book, I will totally shut my brain off to all of the outside noise. I want to go in totally unbiased. And I find that makes me end up liking books that some other people dislike, or disliking books that other people like. But I want to have that honest review for you, so you really get my thoughts. But I got ruined on this one. I got ruined because I've seen too many different threads, mostly on Reddit, where I'm clicking on them, and they're saying, like, what's the most disappointing ending to a book series you've ever read? And Lightbringer was at the top. And I've seen this repeatedly. And I've come to realize that the vast majority of people, and I bet I'm going to, after I finish this, I'm going to go read some of their actual reviews of this book. And I bet you they're universally going to say that the last one is the worst. So I went in so disappointed and not looking forward to it, because the 4th book, the one that I finished recently, was really bad, in my opinion. I thought it had some horrific elements. And so thinking that this last book is going to be worse than the one that I hated, I mean, that doesn't give you a lot of promise. But so I went into this book thinking that, right? And I'm reading along, and I'm listening to it, and I'm finding, I'm 50 pages in, and I'm like, oh, when is the bad going to start? Because I'm actually not minding this so far. I like it. And, I'm halfway through the book, the same thing's happening. And I ended up getting to the last few pages, and I still liked the book. And that is just such a wonderful feeling, to have your expectations improved. So I just got to say that, if you're worried about this book from the outside noise, try to go in with an open mind, because you really might end up liking this book. I have said repeatedly that this series has some of the best twists in all of fantasy. They continually impressed with how well they shocked you, and not just like for the sake of shocking you, but because they actually had something to, like, that had this background and all this build-up, and subverting expectations in a really fair way. Now, there was one twist in the previous book that I thought was maybe the worst twist of all time. But repeatedly in the series, outside of the big one from book number 4, I thought they were extremely well done. And this book was no exception. To find out the true nature of what makes a prism, and I'm not ruining anything by saying this, was amazing. And it's one of those twists where, Brandon Sanderson is really famous for this. He'll hit you with a twist, and when you see it, you're like, I really should have seen it coming. I didn't, but I should have seen it coming. At least that's how it is for me. And that's my favorite kind, because it makes it feel like a fair twist. It's kind of like a mystery movie, where when you find out who it is, you could have figured it out. You didn't, but you could have. I hate a big mystery story where it just blindsides you, and there's no way any reasonable person could have figured it out. But this book did a really good job at that. Another beautifully well done twist was this aspect of, the history of Dazen's childhood. It was very well done. I didn't see it coming. I totally forgot about this kind of previous story that was dropped in the first couple books, and I absolutely neglected it. And when it finally came back to hit me, it was awesome. Now, I also got to say that the character work in this book and this whole series was extremely well done. It was one of the better parts of the series. I thought the character growth was wonderful, especially the main few characters. There was a few that I felt like the character growth was a little bit lackluster or went in a strange way, but overall it was very, very well done. It's really fun to watch where Kip starts and where he ends. And it's a really well, linear progression of seeing this character get more confidence and become the man that he ends up being. I have to spend a little bit of time talking about Andros Guile. I love a good bad guy. And not just like an evil guy, but like somebody who kind of plays the heel. And Andros Guile takes the cake. He is the winner of this book for the best character for me. Now, this might not be a popular opinion, but I thought he was so well done that he's honestly going to go down as one of my favorite all-time fantasy characters. Right up there with Sandan Glokta for this like amazing depth of a character where you're rooting against them. You're supposed to be rooting against them, but you can't help but kind of rooting for them because they're so smart. They're so fun that every time that Andros enters a scene, I get giddy with excitement because I know that the scene is going to be elevated. I know that every single character, and there's many that get these private moments with him that they get elevated too. And I just can't get over how amazing this character is. And the character arc that he goes on is really fun, really unexpected. And I'll never forget Andros Guile. And I think that a lot of authors could look at this example of an amazing kind of quote unquote bad guy and kind of mimic a lot of the things that Brent Weeks did well here. Now, I also felt like the ending of this book did a decent, not amazing job at tidying up this story. The way that it finished was not the strength of this book, and it was not the strength of the series. And I can understand after reading it why some people might have been disappointed, but it worked well enough to not be a disappointment. And I thought so that I was very pleased that it didn't let me down in that regard. So these are all the pros. Now I do have some cons. The major con, and I'm sure this is going to be brought up by virtually everybody, but this book takes a very sudden and unexpected turn towards theology. And not just theology, but Christian theology. And I have no problems with books kind of leaning on Christian theology, but it's the fact that it's, in the latter half of the last book, it just kind of slaps you with it repeatedly. And it just kind of feels odd. It feels out of place. And I don't quite understand why the author thought that this would be a good direction to take the book without the lead up that would be required to make that a well-integrated part of the story. So just a really odd choice. And it's so ham-fisted at times where I'm not like a church-going guy. And I never was. My family didn't take me to church. I've been a small handful of times with relatives for, Easter or Christmas or these sort of things. But even for me, it felt overt. And that's a problem. Where if you are big into Christian theology, this is going to feel like a ripoff. So I get those concerns. I also felt like the usage of all problems getting solved kind of randomly, like a lot of these characters will get in this like seemingly impossible avenue that they can get out of. And some like higher being will come solve it, or, a major, like this powerful thing will happen that just like rescues them out of the moment. And it was kind of disappointing, and it felt like kind of bad writing, and bad, not so much like the writing quality, because I think Brent Weeks is a very good writer, but it's bad planning. So, I thought that could have been touched up kind of a significant amount. I also had a problem with the very end of the book. So the book essentially ends, but then they do this, let's go recap and find out what every character is doing now. And it was like trying to be too cute, tying up every loose end. I don't need that in my books. It would be as if at the end of the Lord of the Rings books, after the ring gets destroyed in Mount Doom, that they go and have an adventure with the hobbits and back at their hometown and start going into their personal lives. Oh wait, that happened, and it was a lot of people's least favorite part of that book. It shouldn't have been done in this book either. It had a very fun ending, and they should have just cut it off. I don't need to have perfect closure over all of my characters. And I'm probably on the extreme side of this because I'm a big Malazan fan, and Malazan cuts off characters without any sense of closure. And they'll go off and do their own thing, and you'll be like, what is this? What? Like a major character is just no longer in the story? They're not dead. They're just not part of it anymore. And I enjoy that. It feels more real. And just got too cute. The last thing I'll say, and this is not a problem with Brent Weeks per se, Not per se, it's not Brent Weeks' fault, but I listened to the graphic audio version of these books. And if you don't know what graphic audio is a rather expensive way to listen to your audio. And it's like every character in the book has their own unique voice actor. And so when you listen to the book, the first like 2 or 3 minutes, they go through every single voice actor and give them credits. And it's kind of rapidly said, and it takes 2 or 3 minutes. And that's how many different voice actors there are. And it's amazing. It's like a play. And they tighten up the book a little bit where instead of saying like Kip said, it'll just be Kip saying it. Instead of saying a door opened, it'll be the noise of a door opening. So it kind of like tidies it up a little bit in an amazing way. It doesn't take out any like major things, but it makes it much easier to listen to and more fun to listen to. And I loved it for the first 4 books. But weirdly, most of the voice actors changed in the 5th book, including the narrator. And I might have gotten more used to this if they didn't do a lot of like skipping who said what. But when you take that out and it's a different voice actor, it's very confusing who's saying what and what's going on. And then like, so the book is split up into 5 different graphic audios, and they're each like, 8 hours long. This is a huge behemoth of a book. It's like 1,000+ pages. But then in like the 4th and 5th edition, the narrator came back. And it's like, what is going on behind the scenes at Graphic Audio for you to lose all your actors and then get some of them back? It's just weird. And maybe I just got too used to them, but it felt like all of the ones that switched were not as good as the first one. So weird thing to do, but whatever. So I actually would not recommend that you listen to the graphic audio. I would recommend that you just do the normal audiobook. And I've heard from people that say that the normal audio is very good. So to wrap this up, Lightbringer did impress. I'm not going to put this book in my top 5 or 10 favorite series of all time. But it is most certainly a top 20. And I've read a lot of series. So when I say top 20, it's not that I've just read like 25 series, and that means it's really bad. This is a good series. I think overall, I would say that I would give this entire series a 4 out of 5 stars. So on my scale, that's a very good book. So give it a shot. You might get disappointed by the final book, but that's part of the journey. And if you are, enjoy what you got. Enjoy the first few books. Enjoy the first 3 or 4 books, because they do deliver some amazing moments. And I really do appreciate what Brent Weeks did here, and I'm looking forward to reading more of his stuff. So that's my review. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll catch you next time.